So for those of you, I think a few of you, maybe this is the first time, I take a few minutes to talk about something. Just listening to, what arises in the moment partly, and partly what comes to me in my morning meditation before I begin this. And then I give a meditation based around that. So this morning, I would like to start with a verse or two from the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching is a sacred book of Taoism, which is closely related to Tai Chi Chuan, which is the root from which TMW came from. And the Tao Te Ching is written by Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu was leaving Beijing to go on retreat to finish his life, and they wouldn't let him leave until he wrote something down. So I said, all right then. And he wrote something down. And what he wrote was the Tao Te Ching. And the edition that I really like because of its translation, and it's translated in many different ways. But this is by Stephen Mitchell, which I think is still available. I've had it for quite a long time now. And it's one of those books where it depends on who's reading it. So if Wisdom Richard Farmer's reading it, then I know exactly what it's talking about. If the Unwisdom Richard Farmer's reading it, I have no idea what it says, even if the day before I really understood. So it's kind of mysterious in that way, and so hopefully it's a good day for you, and you'll know what this is going to be talking about. So look, and it can't be seen. Listen, and it can't be heard. Reach, and it can't be grasped. Above it isn't bright, below it isn't dark. Seamless, unnameable. It returns to the realm of no thing. Form that includes all form. Image without an image. Subtle. Beyond all conception. Approach it, and there is no beginning. Follow it, and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it at ease in your own life. Just realize where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. So just listen where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. So for me, the point of TMW, the point of Tai Chi movements for well-being, the point of meditation on a good day is where you are at the end of it. Because where you are at the end of it is closer to where you come from. So if we were just, harking back to that verse, realize where you come from. At the end of a meditation, at the end of TMW, after return to center, and if you listen in to who you are, 9 times out of 10, especially with Tai Chi movements for well-being, you are closer to your true nature. You're closer to who you really are. Because through the movements, the shapes, and the opening, and the inspiration that they bring, those old uniforms, those uniforms that we define ourselves by. So it could be, husband or wife, or boyfriend or girlfriend, or alone, or male or female, or age, or this or that. Now, all of those positions, like water, like the ocean, just sort of gently lapping against a stone. The stone has to give way sooner or later. And so as we move through the sequence, as we move through these sacred gestures, as we move through these shapes which return us to ourselves, the kind of layers of tension or worry or fear, these fall away to some extent. And on those really few magical days, they completely fall away, and we find ourselves, in an extraordinary place. And it's those moments that really inspire us. But there are many other moments as we go through our practice, maybe not like the big moment. I wish I could get back to that big moment on Wednesday the 23rd in 1998 at 3:30 in the afternoon, precisely when I was in that place. That's it. Well, yes, but so is this. This is it too. This it at the end of this sequence. If you just listen, who starts and who finishes, you'll start to get a feel for who you are, where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. And a while ago, in Marigold and I, well, mostly Marigold, me in support, ran a retreat center called Coulston Court. I would take groups out to the kind of floodplain of the River Wye. So there's the River Wye, very beautiful river, and over the river was this kind of pedestrian suspension bridge which added to the grace. And then there was this large kind of valley or floodplain. Often it was grass. And then there was this little slight rise, into the woods, on a sort of small hill, and there was a church, and there was a house. And you just had the feeling that when you sometimes when I looked at that view, I kind of lost which century I was in, because I knew that it had looked just like that for hundreds of years. And so I would take the group sometimes to this spot, and I'd get them to look, at the house particularly. And I'd get them to look at the house in relation to the exquisite beauty, of the Wye Valley. And to listen to the birds, and to see the sky, and to see the forest, and to see the floodplain, and to see the river, and the gracefulness of the bridge, and just the whole. It's just like a Constable painting. And then I'd say to the group, okay, now you see that house there, and we can surmise that in the house, on the first floor, there's a bedroom. And let's pretend that in that bedroom, there are two people having a row. Do they know they're surrounded by beauty? No. Are they even aware of the rest of the house? No. No, they're completely locked into the argument. And this is true. Because if you just think back to those times of conflict, whether it's with another, or whether it's with yourself, an internal conflict, when you're in that conflict, when you've forgotten where you've come from, when you're just in that, you're isolated and locked in combat. And in that combat, and I use that word, precisely, it is like combat. And in that moment, you can say, and I can say, awful things. And the decisions I make from that place, who's making the decision? Is it wisdom? Or is it anger, or hurt, confusion? Yeah. But that's what we listen to. It's the opposite of wisdom. And when I started to realize this, I mean, I remember a time, it's a long, long, long while ago now. I mean, but Marigold and I had an argument, and we'd gone on for a few days. I wasn't talking to her or something. And I can remember about 3 days later, I was thinking, what were we arguing about? I've no idea. I've forgotten. I actually forgot. And what's more, I sort of turned to Marigold and I said, can you remember what we were arguing about? She said, no, I can't remember either. It's like, that was it. It was kind of over. We sort of come back to ourselves. The steam of the isolation had released itself. And, in that moment, all of a sudden, Richard, the true Richard, the heart of Richard, was back. It's like, well, what was that about? I have no idea. Really? If you'd asked me, what was it about? What did I say? Why was I so upset? I couldn't tell you. In this place. In that place, I could have gone on for days. And so when I started to realize this, when I started to get this, because this was maybe, I don't know, maybe this was like 20 years ago. When I started to get this, and that would happen, because we do actually live in the most extraordinary place. We're very, very beautiful. We're extremely lucky. And there we would be, and then I would look out the window. I would look past Marigold maybe, and I would look out the window, and I would, and sometimes I wouldn't see it. But because I had this understanding, or the growing understanding, sooner or later I would start to actually see out the window. And the moment that happened, I kind of knew, that the moment of return would come. The moment I put it in context, can you have a full-out argument with somebody, consciously taking in the beauty of nature? I challenge you. I challenge you to see if you can do that. I mean, yes, you can be in the beauty of nature. You can cut it off and have a right ding dong. But can you do that in the beauty of nature? It's actually impossible. Because nature, is holding where we come from. very simple. People go to the ocean because it's beautiful, but they go to the ocean because it reminds us. It reminds us of our beginning. It has within it, the essential principles. It has embodiment, it has flow, it has the heart of itself. And we have that behind who we think we are, behind our position, whatever that is, whatever the uniform happens to be. Behind that, we are like nature. We are part of nature. That is our true nature. And I've often said, a human being cannot harm another human being. It's again almost impossible to truly, consciously hurt another human being when you're in that place. But when you're not in that place, you can do all manner of things. Because that person has become a thing. That person has become an object. And I am an object to myself, and I make them an object. So when we come to sit or when we come to move, and especially when it's conscious movement, and especially, just movement in itself is good, but it's not necessarily going to guarantee to take you there. If it's conscious movement, then it's more guaranteed. There's never a guarantee. There's more guarantee that it's going to return you to yourself. And when the principles are there, there's even a greater guarantee that you're going to return to yourself. And if you engage consciously with those principles and you engage consciously with those movements, then it's almost guaranteed. And you know that from your practice. You know that from your experience of Tai Chi movements for well-being. And if you are a meditator, you know that from your experience of meditating. When you engage, something moves. It can't be seen, it can't be grasped. It's kind of beyond conception. And yet, we can be it at ease. In our own life, and in that moment, our own life, would be the sitting in meditation, or would be Tai Chi movements for well-being. But it is only that; it's only a practice, and that's another thing to really keep in the forefront of your awareness. And the last talk, I talked about the kung fu of things. So I'm not in any way saying practice is not important. Practice is important, but it's only a small piece of your life. So when we use practice to see where it's leading us, when we use practice to see who is present now that couldn't be present, who is present in the room, if we go back to that house in that beautiful, beautiful picture, as they become aware of the grandeur that surrounds them, what will remain is the essential relationship. And the essential relationship, is one of love. And whatever they do next, when it comes from love, it'll be the right thing. Because it's coming from that place of wisdom. It's coming from that place of the beginning. It's coming from the source of who we truly are. So I just, taking a little while to say it, but essentially what I'm saying is, in addition to what I've said thus far, to pay attention to where your practice leads you. Get to know then the taste, of who we truly are. behind the concept, behind the idea. And that gives you a choice. Actually, that gives me the choice. And once you understand the choice, there's only one choice to make. But it gives me the choice. Do I want to choose the concept of Richard Farmer, or do I want to choose the wisdom of Richard Farmer? Do I want to choose the kind of wounded, reactive Richard Farmer, or do I want to choose the true nature, the wisdom of Richard Farmer? And as soon as I give myself that choice, there is no choice to make. Because we naturally resonate. And sometimes, bizarrely, we prevent ourselves from seeing that because the part that's in charge wants to do that, wants to be reactive, wants to punish, wants to be right. But even that's crazy, because in time, everything is revealed. Is that not true? In time, everything is revealed. So if I'm going to let it go, why wait? Why stop myself? So I used to give an example of we live close to Herefordshire, and like most towns, it's got a centre, a kind of pedestrian area, and actually in Hereford there's a supermarket on the other side of the square, behind a few buildings, called Tesco's. And I'd give the image of, and maybe I've done this with you, I can't remember, but I'd give the image of two lives, the kind of same person, but in parallel lives. And in one life, the person has their shopping list, and they're slightly late, and they're kind of running, and they rush around the supermarket, and they go home and probably get into an argument with somebody. And in a parallel universe, that same person with the same list, with the same lateness, is walking through Hereford. Before they get to the supermarket, they understand that there's a sky. And they understand that there's an earth. And that they are walking between these two. And just sense the difference. They haven't even got to Tesco's yet, but just sense the difference. Now, one is in that isolated place, and the other, is connected. And they might smell things that others wouldn't have smelt, or they might see things that others wouldn't have seen. And they're going to walk around the supermarket differently, and they're going to go home differently, and they almost certainly won't have the argument that the other one would. Or if they did, if something was wrong or something did upset them, they would respond differently. They would respond more from the truth of where they are rather than kind of reactivity. So that's the meditation that I want to offer you today. It's what I call the meditation of the three powers. And it's just a simple way of tuning into obviously I've called it the three great powers. So the three great powers, which are that there is an earth, and to take a few moments to sense into that, and there really is a sky, and to sense into that, and then to sense into who is between these two, and just see kind of where that leads. And as a meditation, as a practice, it's actually a really good one because it contains the principles. It contains the first principle, contains the second principle, contains the third principle. And the result of that is the fourth principle, as it were. And because it's not linked to like a meditation practice, it's really just about becoming aware of something. Something that you can use. You can use it on the bus. You can use it as you're working. You can use it, you can use it anywhere. It's not difficult. It's just simply seeing what is. Seeing where I come from. I come from the earth. You come from the earth. Everything, this comes from the earth. Well, everything you see here comes from the earth and requires air and fire. It requires the elements. Everything here is part of the world, as am I, as are you. So, hopefully, that's touched something and brought something to life from that verse of the Tao Te Ching. Just remember, where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. Okay.